Good evening and welcome to Loveworld USA News. I'm Joel Richard, and first let's have a look at the top stories this evening. President Trump signs bill ending longest government shutdown in U.S. history. Jack Smith sought McCarthy's private home records in January 6 probe, FBI document indicates. U.S. designates 4 Europe-based Antifa groups as foreign terrorist organizations. Hundreds evacuated after ammonia gas leak in Oklahoma. State of California revokes 17,000 commercial driver's licenses for immigrants. And now to the news. President Donald Trump has signed a stopgap spending measure to end the longest government shutdown in U.S. history, reopening federal agencies after 43 days without funding. The temporary measure keeps the government operating through January 30th while lawmakers negotiate a longer-term appropriations deal for fiscal year 2026. Now, the legislation funds federal operations at existing fiscal year 2025 levels and also includes full funding for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program through September. It also reverses layoffs triggered in October and authorizes back pay for employees who missed paychecks during the shutdown. Now, the U.S. Senate passed the measure on Monday by a 60-40 vote, with 8 Democrats joining Republicans, followed by House approval on Wednesday. The shutdown, which began October the 1st, had caused widespread disruptions, including missed pay for federal workers and flight delays across the country due to air traffic control and TSA staffing shortages. The funding standoff stemmed from partisan disputes over health care provisions. Republicans accused Democrats of seeking to expand benefits for non-citizens and roll back parts of President Trump's 2017 domestic policy law, while Democrats said they sought to extend Affordable Care Act subsidies set to expire at the end of 2025. The temporary measure does not include those extensions, but Senate leaders agreed to a December vote on the issue. Watch this.
I just want to tell you the country has never been in better shape. We went through this short-term disaster with the Democrats because they thought it would be good politically. And it's an honor now to sign this incredible bill and get our country working again. Thank you very much.
In other news, former special counsel Jack Smith allegedly sought the personal cell phone toll records of then House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and former Representative Louis Gohmert during his January 6 investigation, according to an FBI document. Now, the request dated January 24, 2023, was described in a May 25, 2023 significant case notification and followed earlier subpoenas that targeted phone records of multiple Republican lawmakers. Smith's team had said such subpoenas were entirely proper and narrowly tailored to January 4 to 7, 2021. In a response to Senate inquiries, AT&T said Smith's office raised requests for phone records involving 2 members of Congress, but did not pursue after AT&T questioned the legal basis and no records were produced. AT&T separately informed staff that one of the 2 was Senator Ted Cruz. The newly declassified documents indicates the other was McCarthy. McCarthy called the efforts an illegal attempt to access lawmakers' records and accused Smith of weaponizing the Justice Department, saying he will seek redress and expects congressional hearings. Senators Chuck Grassley and Ron Johnson said the Arctic frost review shows an overboard inquiry. Grassley called it a fishing expedition and continues oversight of subpoenas sent to major carriers. The FBI has characterized Arctic frost as a prohibited case requiring heightened transparency and internal review. Smith's January 6 case against President Donald Trump in Washington, D.C. was later dismissed at a special counsel's request after the 2024 election. Now, according to figures cited by our sources, the special counsel's work cost taxpayers more than $50 million. In other news, the U.S. State Department has officially designated 4 Antifa-linked groups in Europe as foreign terrorist organizations and specifically designated global terrorists, marking the first time Antifa-associated entities have received such classifications. Now, the move expands President Donald Trump's earlier domestic terrorism directive to an international scale. The designations apply to Antifa-aligned cells operating in Germany, Italy, and Greece, accused of carrying out bombings, shootings, and other politically motivated attacks. Now, under the new sanctions, U.S. financial institutions are required to freeze any assets linked to the groups, and entry to the United States will be prohibited for their members. The designations also make it a crime to provide material support to the organizations. Now, among those named is Antifa Ost, a Germany-based faction tied to a series of violent assaults between 2018 and 2023. Italy's International Revolutionary Front, also known as the Informal Anarchist Federation. 2 Greece-based groups, Armed Proletarian Justice and Revolutionary Class Self-Defense, were also designated after a string of attacks on government buildings, including the April bombing of Hellenic Railway headquarters. The latter group claimed the attack was dedicated to the Palestinian people. The decision represents a rare use of foreign terrorism sanctions against far-left extremist movements, which European governments have generally treated as domestic security concerns rather than international terrorist threats. Hundreds of residents were evacuated from Weatherford, Oklahoma, late Wednesday after a tanker truck leaked anhydrous ammonia gas in a hotel parking lot. Now, the incident prompted widespread evacuations, school closures, and a shelter-in-place order for parts of the city. Officials said the leak began shortly before 10 p.m., releasing a plume of toxic gas that caused respiratory distress for nearby residents. At least 36 people were hospitalized, and 11 were later transferred to other facilities for additional treatment. Around 500 to 600 evacuees were being housed in a local shelter as of this morning. Emergency crews, including hazmat teams and the Oklahoma National Guard, responded to the scene. Authorities said the leak had been contained, though calm weather conditions slowed the dissipation of the gas. The exit from Interstate 40 to Weatherford was temporarily closed as a precaution. Anhydrous ammonia, which is commonly used as a fertilizer, can cause severe burns and respiratory injuries upon contact or inhalation. Officials continue to monitor air quality while evacuated nursing homes and businesses remain closed until conditions are declared safe. Weatherford, a city of just about 12,000 residents, is located roughly 70 miles west of Oklahoma City. Let's take a look.
Right now, we got information that the levels of the oxygen in the chemical have went down far enough back to normal levels that we are going to open up the area now. So the shelter in place has been lifted. People can go back to their residence. They do not have to evacuate anymore. We are asking the public, though, to keep, watching each other, watching your loved ones. If they're starting to have any breathing problems, to please call 911 or go to the emergency room. There were some serious injuries, and those were meta-flighted to Oklahoma City, and those were the life-threatening. Now, I would say those are in critical condition. There's a step down. I don't know the terminology for it, but our hospital couldn't handle those patients, so 11 of them patients were transported by ambulance. So from my understanding, the driver parked it actually behind the Holiday Inn to get a room there for the evening. We don't have any information that the truck was in an accident. Right now, best what we can determine that it was either a mechanical failure on a valve or it was a faulty seal. The cleanup's going to take a while. It could take probably several days. We pretty much got a lot of this stuff diluted right now, and so we're working with the EPA and getting the regulations on actually how to dispose of everything.
The news will be back after this break.
In a world that's always moving, staying connected to the right resources makes all the difference. Welcome to the Loveworld App Store, the digital home of everything that powers your journey in the Loveworld nation. Here, discovery is simple and meaningful. With our categories section, you can explore a wide range of apps designed to enrich your spirit.
I'm praying especially for you, you that have been sick. You need a miracle.
On the Loveworld App Store, you can access all your favorite apps, such as Healing School app, King's Chat, PCDL, Rhapsody app, Love Tunes, ESPYs, Loveworld Worship, Herald app, Alpha TV, King's View, C-Flix, Hello Loveworld, PCDL for Kids, King's Conference, and so much more. Each application is created to serve a unique purpose and bring you closer to a life of impact. Explore My App feature, where your most valued tools are gathered in one convenient place. It's your personalized hub, ready whenever you are. The Loveworld App Store is more than a collection of apps. It's a vibrant ecosystem built to inspire faith, foster connection, and equip you for impact. Visit www.lwappstore.com to download the app on your device. Explore a world where purpose meets technology. Loveworld App Store. All your world in one place.
This just in today, California officials announced plans to revoke 17,000 commercial driver's licenses issued to immigrants after determining that expiration dates extended beyond the driver's authorized period to remain in the United States. The review followed federal criticism that the state improperly issued licenses to individuals without valid immigration status. U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said the move shows California acted improperly, calling it proof that the state violated licensing standards. He warned that further penalties could follow unless California cancels all invalid licenses. The Transportation Department had already withheld $40 million in federal funding and may reclaim an additional $160 million if the state does not comply. State Governor Gavin Newsom's office said all affected drivers initially held valid federal work authorizations and that licenses must expire when an individual's legal stay ends. Spokesperson Brandon Richards rejected Duffy's claim, saying the secretary is spreading easily disproven falsehoods. Newsom's office added that the state followed guidance from the Department of Homeland Security when issuing the licenses. Federal officials said the action comes just after several crashes involving drivers without legal status. New federal rules announced in September limit eligibility for commercial licenses to holders of H-2A, H-2B, or E-2 visas and require immigration verification through a federal database. The new licenses will be valid for up to 1 year or until the visa's expiration date. States must now begin enforcing the updated standards, though the rules will not apply retroactively to existing license holders. Watch this.
California has revoked 17,000 commercial truck driver licenses that were illegally issued to non-domiciled drivers. The move comes after a demand from Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy in September. A federal audit found that 1 in 4 non-domiciled licenses in California were issued without meeting federal requirements, and some were valid longer than the driver's work permit allowed.
So in plain English, this is a license to operate a massive 80,000-pound truck that's being issued to foreign drivers who are not U.S. citizens or lawful permanent residents. The process for issuing these licenses is absolutely 100% broken.
The Department of Transportation says California's DMV violated federal regulations. In a post on X, Duffy accused Governor Gavin Newsom's administration of being caught red-handed after weeks of claiming they had done nothing wrong. Earlier this year, Duffy called several state systems a serious danger for travelers and announced 2 immediate steps.
Here's the bottom line. Non-citizens will not be eligible for a CDL unless they meet a much stricter set of rules. Second, all states must immediately pause the issuance of non-domiciled CDLs until they can comply with our new rules.
Notices have now been sent out to all affected drivers, and their licenses will expire within 60 days. Meanwhile, Nevada is taking steps to comply with the federal rule. The state DMV announced it will phase out non-domiciled or limited-term commercial driver's licenses and learner's permits, pausing new issuance and its renewals immediately. About 980 drivers statewide will be affected, and existing licenses will expire naturally based on their lawful stay.
More news on the legislation. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said Wednesday that the Trump administration will soon announce measures aimed at reducing prices on imported food items, including coffee and bananas. Bessent said the actions will target goods not widely produced in the United States and are expected to bring the prices down very quickly. Food prices rose 3.1% year-over-year in September, with bananas and coffee increasing 6.9% and 18.9% respectively. The U.S. produces small quantities of bananas in Hawaii and Florida, but most are imported from Latin America. President Donald Trump said earlier this week that the United States plans to lower certain tariffs on coffee imports to help reduce costs. Secretary Bessent said the administration's broader goal is to address what he described as an affordability mess, citing inflation that has affected food, insurance, and car payments. He said the plan includes restoring manufacturing jobs and helping hourly workers see real wage gains. Coffee roasters in the United States have been waiting for the outcome of trade negotiations with Brazil, which supplies about 1/3 of U.S. coffee imports. Prices have surged since the 50% tariff imposed in August, but the administration's expected tariff changes could ease those pressures. Inflation has slowed since peaking at 9.1% in June 2022, but remains above pre-pandemic levels. Watch this.
Well, it's tough to do a lot of specific things, but I can tell you, Brian, you're going to see some substantial announcements over the next couple of days in terms of things we don't grow here in the United States. You know, coffee being one of them, you know, bananas, other fruits, things like that. So that will bring the prices down very quickly. And Brian, we inherited this affordability mess. It was the worst inflation 40, 50 years, one of the worst in the nation's history. And affordability has two components. So there's the price level, and then there is income level. And what happened under Biden was the cumulative inflation, stated inflation, CPI, was 23%. But what happened to working Americans, their basket of goods and services, food, insurance, auto payments, was up in the 30s. So they felt a real gigantic differential there. And what we are going to do is, by bringing back high-paying manufacturing jobs, President Trump is going to do what he did in the first term, and that is for hourly workers and working Americans to have real wage increases. So, Brian, imagine two lines. There is the inflation line. We've got that under control. It's leveled out. That is going to start turning down. Then there's the income line, which under Biden, because so many of the jobs were government jobs, you can't get real wage growth from a government job. Real wages are going to increase. Right. And I would expect in the first quarter, second quarter of next year, those two lines are going to cross, and the American people are going to start feeling better. But look, this has been a tough period.
More news on the business front. Over 1,000 unionized Starbucks workers walked off the job on Thursday at 65 stores in major U.S. cities, demanding better staffing, higher pay, and progress on hundreds of unresolved labor practice cases. The strike coincided with Starbucks' annual Red Cup Day, one of the company's busiest promotional events, during which customers received free reusable holiday cups. Organized by Starbucks Workers United, the action affected stores in at least 45 cities, including New York, Philadelphia, Dallas, Seattle, and San Diego. Organizers said the strike has no set end date and could expand through the holiday season if contract negotiations remain stalled. Workers accused the company of union busting and refusing to agree to a fair contract despite more than 700 pending complaints before the National Labor Relations Board. Starbucks said the strike impacted fewer than 1% of its stores, emphasizing that most locations remained open. A company spokesperson said Starbucks remains ready to negotiate, knowing that any agreement needs to reflect the reality that Starbucks offers the best job in retail, citing an average hourly pay and benefits exceeding $30 an hour. The company also reported that sales today were on track to exceed expectations. Since December 2021, nearly 12,000 workers at about 650 Starbucks stores have unionized, but no national labor contract has been reached. Now, talks between Starbucks and the union have made little progress since bargaining sessions held last year. Let's take a look.
More than 1,000 Starbucks unionized baristas in over 40 U.S. cities launched an indefinite strike on Thursday, intensifying their push for a collective bargaining agreement over increasing pay and staffing levels. Ray Shao is a supervisor at this downtown Manhattan location.
What we're asking for is pretty simple and basic. We want enough hours to meet the benefits. We want enough staffing in our stores so we're not overworked, and we want to be paid enough to live in this city.
The walkout coincides with Red Cup Day, a busy sales event that typically drives higher customer visits. The union warned the strike could become the largest and longest in the history of Starbucks. So far, there has been minimal impact, with less than 1% of stores seeing any disruption. That's according to Starbucks, which told Reuters the union represents roughly 9,500 workers, or 4% of its cafe workforce. In April, the union voted to reject a Starbucks proposal that guaranteed annual raises of at least 2%, saying it did not offer changes to economic benefits such as health care or an immediate pay hike.
Meanwhile, our CEO is making $96 million, and for only 4 months of work. And meanwhile, our CEO is riding in a private jet, and I'm barely able to afford the MTA fare to go to work.
The union has filed more than 1,000 charges to the National Labor Relations Board for alleged unfair labor practices. Starbucks has said it pays an average wage of $19 an hour and offers employees who work at least 20 hours a week benefits, including health care, parental leave, and tuition for online classes at Arizona State University. The union has said starting wages are $15.25 per hour in about 33 states, and the average barista gets less than 20 hours per week. Both sides have blamed the other for stalling the talks and say they are ready to return to the bargaining table.
We'll be back with more news after this break. Stay with us.
It's easy to set up, quick to start, and packed with value. Smarter streaming starts here with the Alpha TV Stick. Just plug and stream anytime, anywhere. Discover a curated lineup of content designed to inspire, live broadcasts and global events, inspirational films and series, children's programming, healing and teaching sessions, all on demand.
With millions of downloads worldwide, the Alpha TV app is transforming lives across the globe. And now, we're on a mission to reach 1 billion downloads of the Alpha TV app, and you can be part of it. Join the global wave with 1 billion Alpha TV app downloads worldwide. Bring the higher life into every home. Order your Alpha TV Stick today and experience smarter streaming. Alpha, the higher life is here.
Some news around the world tonight. Argentina has released more than 1,850 declassified documents detailing investigations into Nazi war criminals who fled to South America, with most records spanning the late 1950s through the 1980s. The digitized trove appears on the National General Archives website and follows encouragement from the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee. The Simon Wiesenthal Center credited Chairman Chuck Grassley for prompting the disclosure. Now, the files include extensive material on Adolf Eichmann, who lived near Buenos Aires as Ricardo Clement until his 1960 capture by Israeli agents, and on Josef Mengele, who resided in Argentina before escaping to Paraguay and Brazil, where he died in 1979. Dossiers also track efforts to locate Martin Bormann, Ante Pavlich, Rudolf Hoss, and Klaus Barbie. Some records suggest elements of the Juan Perón government knew of Eichmann's presence or shielded him. All of the entries conflict with that claim. Now, separately, workers renovating Argentina's Supreme Court uncovered 83 boxes of Nazi-era documents long stored in a basement. Authorities say the crates contained materials intercepted in 1941 from the German embassy in Tokyo and shipped aboard the Nan Amaru, later seized amid a probe into anti-Argentine activities. The court ordered a full survey once digitized. Officials say the contents will be declassified. Now, Chief of Cabinet Guillermo Francos said President Javier Milei authorized the releases because there is no reason to keep the record secret. Commenting on the trove's significance, U.S. Heritage Commissioner Harley Lipman said the materials could illuminate how and why fugitives were harbored and may shed light on financial networks and assets tied to the Holocaust. In other news, on the international front, Algeria has released French-Algerian writer Boualem Sansal, aged 81, only a year after his arrest at Algiers airport, ending a diplomatic crisis between Paris and Algiers. President Abdelmadjid Tebboune granted Sansal a pardon following a direct request from German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier, citing humanitarian reasons related to the author's age and health. Sansal, who is being treated for prostate cancer, was flown to Germany on Wednesday evening and taken to a hospital upon arrival. French President Emmanuel Macron thanked Tebboune for what he called an act of humanity, noting that France's diplomatic approach relied on respect and calm. French Ambassador Stéphane Romatet said the breakthrough came through Germany's mediation after months of strained relations. Steinmeier said he had personally appealed to Tebboune so Sansal could receive medical care in Germany. Sansal had been sentenced in July to 5 years in prison for undermining national unity after making remarks questioning Algeria's borders. His case deepened tensions between France and Algeria, already strained by France's recognition of Moroccan sovereignty over Western Sahara and disputes involving consular staff and migration policy. Now, although Sansal's release has eased tensions, relations between the two nations remain delicate. French officials said efforts continue to secure the release of journalist Christophe Glaise, who was sentenced to 7 years in prison in Algeria earlier this year. Watch this.
Sunday would have marked 1 year behind bars for Boualem Sansal. The author was arrested in November 2024 in Algiers for undermining Algeria's territorial integrity. He was detained in the midst of a diplomatic crisis between France and Algeria, following Paris's recognition of Morocco's sovereignty over Western Sahara. This recognition was welcomed and endorsed by Sansal, whose 5-year sentence was upheld by an appeals court in July. French President Emmanuel Macron expressed thanks for Algeria's kind gesture and for Germany's help in securing Sansal's release.
We work transparently with our German friends as a trusted third party, and I thank sincerely President Steinmeier for making himself available. We were always concerned with being efficient. This is the result of France's constant efforts and of a calm, respectful method.
In spite of this method, relations between France and Algeria remain tense. A statement from the Algerian presidency indicates they view Sansal's release quite differently from Macron.
On November the 10th, 2025, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, received a request for clemency for Boualem Sansal from Mr. Frank-Walter Steinmeier, President of the Federal Republic of Germany, a friendly country. The President of the Republic responded favourably to this request, which caught his attention due to its humanitarian nature.
The statement appears to say France has nothing to do with Algeria's change of heart. Sansal is known for his criticism of Islamists and the Algerian government. He is suffering from prostate cancer, according to his family. France also continues to call for the release of French journalist Christophe Glaise, who was sentenced to 7 years in prison for condoning terrorism and spreading propaganda on June 29th. His appeal is scheduled for December 3rd.
Just before we end the news, a quick look at tomorrow's weather forecast. To cap off the news tonight, a quick recap of the top headlines. President Trump signs bill ending longest government shutdown in U.S. history. Jack Smith sought McCarthy's private phone records in January 6 probe, FBI document indicates. U.S. designates 4 Europe-based Antifa groups as foreign terrorist organizations. Hundreds evacuated after ammonia gas leak in Oklahoma. California revoked 17,000 commercial driver's licenses for immigrants. And that's the news we have for you tonight. Join us at the same time tomorrow for more news. I'm Joel Richard, signing off. God bless you, God bless our armed forces, and God bless these United States of America.